Alright, listeners, time to resume our regularly scheduled programming. This is episode 181. I'm Greg Domage, and I have a ton of news to drop on you because of the fact that we had that big special featured trio of podcasts in which I did not drop a lot of news on you. So, time to get caught up in everything basically since Christmas. Here we go! In case you had any doubts, Tina Ola has continued to do crowdfunding chronicles. She reported on La La Land, which was a graphic adventure RPG kind of hybrid out of a small studio in Moscow, which the campaign ended back in January. So hopefully it got funded because it looks really neat, full of a whole lot of style. The other thing she covered is something I'm super excited for myself. It's a little adventure game called Tangletorn. It's a roguelike card game deck building kind of RPG, which looks fantastic. So much amazing style. I like card games. I'm probably going to like this. I'm going to assume it got funded because that ended up on January 24th. We had an incredibly robust special feature that dropped back near the end of December that was written by Scott for us, which was So You Want to Get Into the Trails series. So Scott goes in depth into the entire Trails arc and how to start it, where to get into it, what each game brings to the series, and I definitely recommend reading this feature if you have any passing interest in the Trails series or any invested interest in getting into the games, have dropped off it at any point, whatever. He has played them all, he has touched on even the ones that haven't come over here. I definitely recommend this, especially with the new Trails game on the horizon, and with the possibility that those Japan-only ones may get localized over here. We shall see. With the end of the year and our entire episode trilogy that spanned it was the RPG Fan Games of the Year Awards for 2019. So we had all of our Editors Awards and all of our category awards. If for some reason you missed it with that last podcast, those are still a thing. Go check those out. As well, we had our 30 most anticipated RPGs of 2020. So if you want to see what we're looking forward to coming into 2020, or if there's anything you just haven't heard about and needs to get on your radar, that is the feature for you to go check out. So the bulk of this intro is definitely going to be focusing on our wonderful reviews department, who have been hard at work over this past month with a lot of new releases and such that have hit us right around the holidays and coming into the new year. And we have a crazy 2020 ahead of us for releases. So jumping right off the bat, first of all, we have Jonathan Logan's revisit to Cadence of Hyrule Crypt of the Necrodancer featuring The Legend of Zelda. He jumped into the Octavos Ode DLC that kind of added some new stuff to it. So if you want to know what this brings to the game, go check out his Crypt of the Necrodancer Cadence of Hyrule review that he did give Editor's Choice to, and I don't think Octavos Ode has detracted from that in any way, shape, or form. Next on our list is Bob Richardson's ever-continuing adventures in Life is Strange 2. He's touched on Episode 5, which seems to be maintaining the quality of the entire overall story. SD Gundam G-Generation Cross Rays came overseas to us, and Kyle Courtvelli was all over it, as some of you may remember from, I think, the last episode before we got into our Game of the Year feature. It looks awesome. I like me some Gundams and some mecha, as we have discussed, and overall, Kyle seems pretty pleased by the entire experience. Vampire: The Masquerade Coteries of New York came out as well, which caught Neil by surprise with it wasn't as great as he thought it was going to be, actually. It only kind of came in at a middling kind of score with him, which is funny because I think he was also playing another indie game at the same time and was shocked that the indie game was a lot better than what he was expecting, and conversely, Vampire was far worse than he was expecting. At any rate, good things going forward, but I think it leaves a lot more to be desired, unfortunately. Have you been listening to Retro Encounter? Well, if you haven't, you should be, because we had a great episode with the team over at Zeboyd Games, and part of that was discussing Cthulhu Saves Christmas that came out just around the holidays. We all played it. Jonathan Logan was reviewing it for the site and gave it RPG Fan Editor's Choice because it is a tight, fun little JRPG that is really well put together and a whole lot of fun. Bob Richardson also found time to dive into the PC release of Dragon Quest Builders 2, which, again, seems like a pretty solid above-average experience. I know, has the same thing to say that the combat still hasn't quite got to what we would love to see from this series, but everything else is definitely a joy, and I'm sure the control scheme on PC might lend itself a bit better, but Switch, PC, PS4, you've got some solid options to play this game. Well, speaking of PC experiences, one that made the jump from PC over to consoles was Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition, which I reviewed for the Nintendo Switch, and again, overall, it's held up fairly well, but it's a bit clunky on the Switch. And you can go check out my review on the website if you want to read more in depth about what I had to say about this longtime classic from BioWare. In a much more robust DLC release, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 had the Rise of the Phoenix DLC come out that Audra Bowling went back to the game to revisit, and overall it seems to add a lot of good stuff for fans of the series. So there's basically more solid Ultimate Alliance 3 to enjoy, and you'll most likely enjoy what you're going to find in Rise of the Phoenix. So it's definitely worth getting into if you're a fan of the game. Making the jump over to PC also is Monster Hunter World Iceborne, which I am shocked how quickly Bob Richardson was able to find time for this and get through it. But overall, he thinks it made the jump quite well. It's going to be a lot more of the same grind and the time demanding, and nothing really different as I spoke about on the PS4, but it's still a great piece of DLC, and now you can play it on PC. And hopefully they've fixed all the save issues by now. In a bit of a shift from our usual stuff, we did a review based on a fan translation of Dai Gyakuten Saiban Naruto Ryunosuke no Boken, which is the Great Ace Attorney, if I'm not mistaken, and we do have a official copy of the Japanese version, but it hasn't been officially localized yet. But either way, after much rigmarole, we decided to review it. Jonathan Logan played it and overall thinks it's a great addition to the Ace Attorney series and worth checking out. Scarlet Studies fan translation as well, and we're all just hoping that Capcom will give us a official release at some point in the near future. And there's more DLC. Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind gave us some DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3, and it's maybe not as exciting as fans would hope for. I mean, folks are hoping for some more story gaps to be filled in and such, which it does with a bit, but it doesn't really add a lot for what it offers, and just kind of seems to go over the same stuff, unfortunately. So check out Zach's review and see if you want to jump back into Kingdom Hearts 3 with this DLC, or if you're just happy with the experience as it's been. And then we have a lovely little title from Neil Chandran's review of Mythic Ocean, which is just a delightful, relaxing, very chill-looking RPG with just some wonderful aesthetic appeal. And it's just like a nice classic visual novel that can be a really lovely little experience to explore. So go check out his review of Mythic Ocean, because it looks really delightful. And we have our final review of this tirade of reviews. It's To the Moon, which dropped on the Nintendo Switch with its kind of enhanced version with some updated graphics, a lot of story content added into it, and just refined for consoles. And Zach Wilkerson got the hands-on review of it for us, which overall he seems pretty pleased with it, even though he had some frustrations with those controls of it being ported over to a console. For the video team, we also jumped in and did a nice video review for you folks as well. So if you want to read Zach's review or hear his lovely voice and watch some of the wonderful visuals from the delightful story that is To the Moon, please check out both reviews and see if it's finally time for you to experience this wonderful classic indie RPG darling if you haven't yet already. And as per usual, we close out with the wonderful work of our music department. Patrick Gann got his ears into the Chamberworks Nier Automata album, and it sounds lovely, as that the whole thing has wonderful music, and Sean Shaviansky is no stranger to producing wonderful work. So go check out Patrick's review if you are a fan of Nier Automata's music, the game, all of it in between. It is definitely worth listening to this. Our other review is a beautiful, it looks so lovely. The Skies of Arcadia Eternal Soundtrack Vinyl Edition. It's 3 vinyl albums that Hilary Andreff reviewed for us, and just the production value on this is absolutely stunning. I don't have a record player, but I want to get this, if only just to have the entire collection for myself, because Wayo Records has just done amazing work with this whole collection. Please check out Hilary's review, have a listen to the music. It's going to be really worthwhile for you to listen to this incredible project. And that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode of Random Encounter, a new year of Random Encounter. We're going to keep this going through 2020, and my thanks to everybody for their feedback on to whether they like this new stuff or not. Everyone seems inclined, because it draws attention to stuff they wouldn't normally know about. So, at any rate, moving on with this, let's get to episode 181. Hey everybody, we are back in the new year. You've listened to a bunch of the super special giant 3-part Game of the Year stuff, but now we're back to just normal, regular old episodes, which means normal, regular old people like myself, Greg Delmage, your host today, and I've got Pete Leavitt back on the podcast. Pete, welcome back.
Hello, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you back because you were good for conversation last time. Unfortunately, nobody else but me wants to talk to Pete, so it's just the two of us. I kid, Jono was going to join us, but his throat was sore, so he had to back out the last minute, unfortunately, with sore sickness stuff.
Get well soon.
Yes, but no worries. We'll get more conversation going in the future. But for now, what's going on, Pete? How's your year of barbering been? How's your cork floors treating you?
It's been great. Things have been going pretty well, thankfully. Just a lot of signs pointing to a pretty good 2020. You know, I don't really have much reverence for the new year and what it represents for some people. I just don't share that. I get it, and it's cool. And if people use that as a vehicle for self-improvement and things, it's really great. So what I'm saying is it's a me problem. But just having the context of, you know, the year starting and it being January, I think it's actually been a pretty great January for me, thankfully.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff that restarts whether you like it to or not. So something's going to, fall into place one way or the other for the new year for you. But yeah, I get what you mean where you don't really put stock in like the resolutions and stuff like that and making this such a big milestone and a big source of pressure for yourself.
What you're saying is I need to just I need to step in line. It's cool. It's cool.
I'm not saying that at all. Because I'm more or less the same way. Like I made some like gaming resolutions and stuff like that, but as far as life resolutions, I find it all just kind of blurs together at this point. Which I've found is the case ever since I started having a family with Annette.
Of course,
it's just another week.
Yeah, of course, setting goals and pushing yourself to improve is very important, and people use the new year for that, and then so it's really, really good.
Yeah, exactly.
My hang up is I don't, and again, it's not me like bragging about it, but it could be something I learn in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, who knows? For now, you can just be hipster about it.
Yeah, be all too cool and all that stuff.
But at any rate, we are here in the new year for the first proper episode, and thanks everybody for listening. All right, that's it. It's been a good episode. Bye.
No,
as you can probably expect from the two of us being together, giant robots are probably going to be brought up. But before we get into that, I was dabbling with I'm going to mess up the name. Okay, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. There we go.
Very nice.
A second and really process it. Any rate, back when the demo came out, when they were talking on the Nintendo Direct, did you see the Pokemon Direct that they had and/or the video I did about it?
I didn't see the Direct. I missed your video, and I'm really sorry to see. I heard some rumblings here and there about the Pokemon Direct, though. I heard, I'm sure we're going to get into it, but I heard about them adding the new Pokemon and the kind of roadmap that they announced. So that's pretty cool. But I did not hear about the Mystery Dungeon game in those rumblings.
That's basically how they kicked it off before getting into the Sun and Moon. Nope, that's the wrong game. That's how they kicked it off before getting into the Sword and Shield kind of stuff. Was with throwing back to the Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team Mystery Dungeons back in, I think it was 2006.
Right.
I'm saying. And they've remastered those Game Boy Advance games now to release on the Switch. And on that same day, the demo was available. So the demo's been out for a bit. But it's great because like the art style... Did you see anything about, I think, was it Audra who did the review for Doraemon Story of Seasons? Did you read her review and or just check out any of the screenshots from Doraemon Story of Seasons?
I have, yes, yeah.
Well, so you know how it has kind of that storybook kind of pastel...
It's gorgeous. I love it.
Right?
Yeah,
and that's what they're bringing to this game now. So they're kind of redoing the entire engine with all 3D models and such to bring it up to a new generation. But the backgrounds, and the coloring of the characters and stuff is all very storybooky and in that sort of style of like
it's like hand. It looks almost hand painted or whatever, hand done.
Exactly,
it's really
right?
really nice.
Yeah. and it's fantastic looking, and I think it's like a gorgeous way to present these stories. Like, I mean, I wouldn't even hate if the mainline Pokemon game took on an art direction like this, but to separate the two, I think it's a really nice choice to make it this way, and it's definitely catering to its audience of kids and such as well with this kind of look and appeal. So I think it's stunning. That's like, it immediately caught my eye, if only from the visual standpoint.
Gosh, I really am regretting not checking this out, but now I'm definitely going to. Yeah, if it looks like that Doraemon game in that kind of hand-painted style, that's something to behold.
Mm-hmm. And it's otherwise more or less all the same sort of thing. Like, you start up the game and you get a little quiz that kind of helps you choose what kind of Pokemon you are based on like your personality choices, which kind of harkens back to like Ogre Battle for me.
I think all the Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre games have that. Definitely Ogre Battle 64 did, but yeah, that's really cool.
And my favorite was in the original SNES version of Ogre Battle was there's one localization error for one of the questions. It was like who would you save from a burning building? And it was like your ailing mother, your child, and then the third one was you beautiful lover. Like they dropped the R on your.
Oh, right.
And it was just really a funny error to miss.
Yeah, that game was flirting with you.
Right? Would you save yourself, you beautiful lover? And any rate, back to Mystery Dungeon. Yeah, so they have a big questionnaire, and like it's got some really funny questions. Like one of them was like, what happens if what would you do if aliens invade? Like, would you fight? Would you run away? Would you do nothing? Kind of thing.
just stand there.
Right? Well, I had a follow-up question too of like, so the aliens win. What do you do? Do you join them, or do you, like rebel against them or whatever? And so it was kind of funny, all these very interesting questions, not just simply like, do you like ice cream? Yes or no, or whatever. So I thought that was interesting.
That's like a potentially dark, like what if an invading force invaded your home and tried to force you to assimilate? To what degree would you resist? Like that's what it's asking. Like, is that for Pokemon?
Well, exactly. Right? Exactly. Well, Pokemon? No. Invade? No, it was interesting. I did say yes, I would eventually join the aliens though, because I was more
honestly
the protect my family thing, right? Unfortunately,
I think that's the most realistic answer. I mean, resistance and all that. Man, let's get into this. I guess that like when we see like dictatorships and whatever, and how they manage to keep people in line, often it's through hard propaganda and threats and whatever. That's what I mean, is like it's usually the threats that do it, and people don't necessarily like being there, but what are you going to do? At least I can keep my head down and maybe avoid some risk. That's a realistic answer.
Someday there could be an opening. Who knows?
I mean, yeah, but even taking that opening represents a huge risk, especially if you're not looking out for just yourself.
Yeah, and it's a very hard question.
Man, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, asking those hard philosophical questions.
Well, did you ever watch Colony on Netflix? It only got 3 seasons, sadly, but it's a great show.
No, I didn't see that.
But it's essentially that aliens come down and colonize Earth by like breaking like the states and everything into different colonies, and then you basically have the choice of resist or join them, or just kind of be subjugated. So like certain humans would join like their special police force that was working for the occupiers, and then everyone else was just normal humans that got rations and yada yada yada, and had a pretty normal life by and large, but there's curfew and all that stuff. It was interesting. And so yeah, the main characters have to make those hard choices of like, do we just keep towing the line to protect our family and ourselves, or not? And really, it weirdly brought me right to that show, and I was like, yeah, how would I go about this? And it depends on the occupiers. Like, they never said that they were evil aliens that were killing everybody.
If they invaded, then they're probably attacking and being aggressive.
Mm-hmm. But it could be also like, maybe their plan was effed up and they're just hoping we'd say yes. Who knows? At any rate, I think the implication is that they're supposed to be attacking. But yeah, either way, it all really depends. So, all that being said, I was chosen to be a Skitty.
Okay.
All that.
That sounds like a euphemism for a sellout or something.
Well, Skitties were they black and white? I forget when they got introduced, what generation, but they were just these adorable little pink cats. But you also have the choice of just saying, no, too bad, I want to take the quiz again, or just picking what you want. But it's kind of fun to have that. So I actually did decide to pick what I wanted just for the sake of the demo because I loved a Bulbasaur. So I was like, I'm going to be Bulbasaur. So I picked Bulbasaur, but then you get to pick your partner. And my partner I made Skitty. I was like, I'm at least going to honor the quiz to a point. Because I take that stuff seriously.
So honorable.
I got myself a Bulbasaur and a Skitty. And yeah, you wake up in the Bulbasaur's body and you're apparently a human, but you somehow... but I haven't figured out how yet, but you've been transferred into being a Pokemon in this Pokemon world, and then very quickly you hear someone's in distress, and you go into like a roguelike kind of dungeon that is procedurally generated. So it goes into that top-down, three-quarter kind of view of you navigating the dungeon. Every move you make, enemies make closer towards you or away from you. Like everything's, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like turn-based where you can pause the game basically by just not moving or taking an action.
Exactly.
But if you take an action, the enemy is allowed to take an action. Yeah, very classic roguelike stuff.
It is. It's very well rooted in the classic turn-based style, and I think Pokemon translates really nicely to that. And it's interesting, obviously, coming at it from not having a trainer, but they still insisted on putting the human element in it by making us into a Pokemon. Like I'll see how the story goes, and it might be more compelling. But at the moment, I'm just like, why can't I just be a Pokemon? But whatever. So you go in, and you're trying to save Butterfree's Caterpie kid. There's a fissure that opened up, so you go down into this dungeon that opened in the fissure and navigate through fighting other Pokemon that are more aggressive because of this earthquake or whatever. And you use all your staple Pokemon moves. It's pretty basic. Like you just mash the attack button and it'll do a random one of your moveset. But I haven't figured out yet if I haven't played it extensively enough yet to know, can I pick just a specific move? Will that work to my benefit with type matchups? So if I want to make sure I'm picking, I want to do the poison attack because I'm attacking this fighting type, or whatever. Or make sure I'm using my psychic attack against this ghost type as opposed to the grass move because I know it'll be super effective. Or does the game automatically do that? I don't know. Because most of the stuff I was fighting were bugs and grass types anyway, so I'm not sure if the Bulbasaur character was just doing whatever felt best. At any rate, Skitty was a monster and destroyed a lot of things too, so it was just, it was pretty cool. That's why it would join the aliens. No, either way, I'll probably check it out with Gwen at some point, I'm sure, because, she still loves her Pokemon stuff. She was just drawing original Pokemon the other day. That's great. She was very excited for all the Sword and Shield news, which came out. So she hasn't tried this demo yet because she got The Sims 4 for herself after Christmas with her Christmas money. So she's been obsessed with that instead. But
good for her.
I'm assuming she'll be enjoying this as well because it's very simple and straightforward, both mechanically, because that roguelike mechanic is very simple. And the stories are very basic. Like you're just going in and trying to rescue a creature or save somebody. And in this case, it's the Caterpie. You get to the end and you save it, bring it back to the mom. And she's like, oh my gosh, thank you. We don't have much, but here's $500 and a couple berries. And it's like, but if you don't have much, why are you giving? Anyways.
Oh, I love that.
RPG elements. Right?
This is all I can offer you.
My life savings.
Right. You saved my life from ruin. Let me ruin my life to reward you.
Thank you for saving my child I can no longer feed. Welcome to Dark Encounter. No. Anyways. And, you level up your characters as they go, so they get more abilities, and they learn moves, kind of relearn them as you would in, like, the mainline Pokemon games. So it's cool. Like, they've done a good job of mashing the two mechanics together, and I think that works well. It's going to be a very compelling gameplay thing. I'm looking forward to getting into more complex dungeons than just, like, the opening one, because the opening one is a lot of just kind of big empty rooms. They introduce the mechanics slowly in a really nice tutorial way of like, here's some enemies to fight, and then the next floor is like, you can find some random treasure on the ground. And then I'm sure eventually there'll be traps and puzzles to solve and stuff too, so I'm looking forward to how that develops. But you save Caterpie, you go back, and they're like, hey, I have a house for you, since, you're going to be staying here for a while as a Pokemon, and you're like, alright, cool, I like this house. And you're
like, wait, I'm going to be staying here for a while? What do you mean?
Well, your character's kind of like, I don't know if it's because I'm a Pokemon or not, but I really like this house, and I guess until I figured this out, this is where I am. So you just got to deal with it, I guess.
Yeah.
And you get some bandanas, and you decide to make a team name. So I called ours the Bespokemon, since we're bespoke we're dealing with bespoke problems, you know.
Boo.
So get out of here. And that was kind of my experience so far. I haven't gone past like the first kind of opening moments of it, but it's nice. It's a nice refresh, and not that the advance hasn't aged well, but it's just beautiful the way everything.
Well, a lot of people don't have it. A lot of people have the Switch now, so you know.
Exactly, and well, they could have just done a direct port. It's nice that they've updated everything. I also didn't know until this game that like Bulbasaur's little like nubs on its head, which I'm pretty sure kind of ears, but they actually like move kind of independently in this game.
See, you can't get that on like GBA.
No, they did a great job on the animation and stuff. Yeah, it's really nice. So yeah, that's been my fun little like throwback to some classic RPGs, which kind of leads me into the other game I've been playing, but we'll get to that in a moment. Because now I want to talk about giant fighting robots, because you were playing BattleTech, finally.
Talk about a throwback to old RPGs and other such related things.
It's kind of, yeah. Because BattleTech, is it modeled off of Mech Commander?
To one degree or another, it's modeled off of the old War Game. I don't know. I'm not very familiar with the original BattleTech board game or war game.
It's pretty fun. It's definitely a good RPG,
right?
Because it's neat that you can jump in and out of the mechs. Like it's not all about like big giant battle mech fighting. Like I have a few minis myself, actually.
Right. Yeah, and everything that exists in BattleTech comes from that. So yeah, they have your infantry and all your combined arms, your aircraft, your tanks, and of course your mechs, which are the centerpiece. BattleTech, old tabletop board game, came out. It was made by FASA. They
modeled off of Robotech, right?
Well, so they used to be called Battle Droids, and then Star Wars gave them trouble for that, so they called it BattleTech. And they started off by getting like surplus miniatures from Japan and building a war game around it. And so there's a lot of Robotech representation. There's like one of the most famous examples is the Marauder, which is this massive, like heavy chicken-legged battle, mech, like walking tank, several stories high with like a big cannon on top and two arms that sling underneath, and is a very iconic. That's very much from, if you look up Macross, you'll see that's like a fodder enemy in the Macross.
It sure is, and it's like one of the most powerful battle mechs.
In BattleTech, it's one of the more powerful, iconic mechs, but which is the right move because that thing looks awesome. But so there's a pretty interesting history about all the legal stuff they're going through with Harmony Gold, the owners of the U.S. license of Robotech, which includes Macross, and there's been this twisty-turny kind of legal battle in the real world we live in that has affected the lore of the game. So they've called some things Lost Tech. And they incorporate it into like various dark ages the universe goes into as they lose licenses to certain designs or whatever. It's been this crazy thing. But anyway, that's what this BattleTech game by Harebrained Schemes is more or less based on. But it's a turn-based tactics game, so it's smaller scale. It doesn't deal in BattleTech board game, you could have smaller scale conflicts, but this game by Harebrained Schemes is very much a classical turn-based tactical game with the strategy elements, which take the form of kind of an overarching management of your mercenary company,
which is what we all love usually in the series.
That's the best part of the Mech Warrior series. The best part of BattleTech is when you're a mercenary and you insert yourselves into conflicts in some small way, but your small dramas are big dramas to you. And it's all about managing your money. Yeah, taking contracts. It would be interesting to see this
set into like the clan case system that you're like trying to jockey for position and stuff. We haven't really seen that super hard, even though MechWarrior 2, which kind of really put the series on the map, was all in the clans world. You didn't really have the narrative of trying to jockey for position to get better missions or this or that, whatever. You just kind of, as you went through stories, you naturally just progressed in power in the game anyways.
Yeah. In 1995's MechWarrior 2, there's a score system, and that is affected by your rank. There's various ways you can raise your rank. It really has no consequence to the game itself. But
No, it'd be cool to have like a political
awesome.
intrigue aspect to it all, like the depth they've put into like the mercenary and inner sphere management systems.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. You were saying that yeah. So this has a lot of like the resource management of managing a mercenary company. You're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you earn money, and a lot of the management of your financial management and your equipment management revolves around collecting salvage from the battlefield. So you can pick up salvaged mechs and weapons, and what you're allowed to pick up is part of the negotiations for your contracts, which also affect your relationship to various factions. And so I'm playing through the main campaign right now. There have been 3 DLC packs. I'm reviewing it for the site, and I'm doing all of it. And the game came out last year, but the last DLC pack, well, it also came out last year, but it came out in December. It came out very late. So in a way, it's still a little bit relevant. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And so what did they add with this new DLC pack?
So the first one they added was like, I actually don't know the timeline of which they added when, except for this last one. But they added one that was like you could go on extended campaigns, which means you have to do several missions in a row without being able to repair your mechs. They have one that they added urban areas, so much more close quarters fighting and having to adjust your tactics to the urban environment. And they added one that called Heavy Metal, which has added a bunch of new weapons and mechs, including a weapon that they invented in the universe for this game. I haven't used it yet, but I know that it's a mortar, and it's the only area of effect weapon in the game. So it's like a massive artillery piece basically on your mech that can devastate an area. Yeah,
that can do some damage. And this one's Urban Warfare, right?
That one is Heavy Metal, which is the last one.
Oh, okay. So there was Flashpoint, then Urban Warfare, which was the summer. So the latest one is Heavy Metal that just came
Heavy
out.
Metal, right.
Gotcha.
And so some of that stuff is, you can see it in the campaign, in the main campaign, which is like the different biomes they've added and things like that. And I think you'll come across the mechs they've added and the weapons they've added in the campaign, although I can't confirm that at this point. But it's just amazing. I love this game so much. I'm gonna have trouble catching my breath because it's hard for me to not just gush about it. But
it's okay. I picked it up not too long ago, and I'm eager to get into it as well. And
yeah,
you're definitely selling it for me.
If you're able to, you should. I mean, the way it works in this game, what makes it different from like XCOM or something, which I also love, is just the role
that you can actually hit things.
Actually, the opposite. I think often it's the opposite problem, but there's so much attrition going on. There's so much money that you lose, that like any encounter, you can't escape an encounter unscathed practically. Like in XCOM, it's all about keeping your guys completely safe, but in BattleTech, it's often necessary to put your guys in your people in harm's way. And the mechs can take a lot of damage, but every missile that hits your mech is like money that you're going to have to use to repair it. You know what I mean? So there's always this drag and this resistance to your progress. And it's a game that requires you to put in some work. Like, it's not an easygoing, breezy, snappy game.
You can't just like power level and...
No, because so much of what you do depends on your equipment. Now, your pilots are also very, very important. They gain skills. That's where like the RPG part comes in. That and the dialogue, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But they gain experience. You assign that experience to their stats, and you have 4 tracks that you can assign experience to, and they all deal with different aspects, but you can only have at some point you'll come across skills that you can use in battle, like multi-targeting or sensor lock or things like that.
Oh, that's dope. That makes me think of like Front Mission and stuff.
Yes, but you can only have 2 tracks that involve the skills, so you can't have a mech warrior with all the skills. But you eventually, if they survive long enough, you could ostensibly level all their stats up So even if they are leveling up stats that aren't on the track where their skills are, they still improve in those aspects, whether it's their defense or their targeting or whatever. But their actual skills you can only choose 2 tracks that you can apply those skills to. So that means that your mech warriors will be much more specialized. And that kind of leads me to the narrative aspect of this game, both the handcrafted and the emergent parts of it. The story is really interesting. It involves you trying to put a deposed queen back on her throne because her uncle is being a real jerk and performed a coup and kicked her out and whatever.
And which house is this for?
This is in the periphery. So it's not there's not a member of the Great House at all.
Okay. Interesting.
They're basically in some backwater, but you find out as it goes on that they actually have made ties to the Lyran Commonwealth.
Oh, okay. I was going to guess House Lyo, but cool.
Well, yeah, one of the houses.
The Lyran Commonwealth is part of Steiner? Oh, gosh.
The Federated Sons are Steiner and Avion.
Yeah. I thought the Lyran Alliance was part of that,
is Liao and... Oh, boy.
The White Horse
The Tauren Concordat? I don't know.
Yes. Anyway, that's the one. We're getting super nerdy now.
Yeah, we're getting into the weeds with this thing. But
anyways,
I don't mean to dismiss it because it is really great. Like, the characters are really good. The queen, Kamea Arano is her name. She's very flawed and very good and sympathetic, but she's also like from the ruling class, and sometimes I find her to be kind of entitled and kind of, not so great.
That's okay.
But
don't have to like everybody.
But she's a person and she's a good character, and so whoever you are, you pick your character's appearance and name and everything. You guys have a history. You were actually part of the royal guard that was supposed to escort her to her coronation when the coup happened. But even before that, there's some history between you as far as like you working for her, and anyway, it's really cool. So it's a good story. The characters are cool. Your crew is really cool. But then your pilots, so as you're traveling through space, as this game, it requires you to put in some work. It also requires you to be a little bit patient because the repairs take time. Any upgrade you make to your ship, your spaceship, takes time. When your pilots get injured, which they inevitably will, that takes time for them to heal. So there's a lot of like waiting. But as you're traveling through space, these dialogue boxes will pop up randomly, like an FTL, and they usually involve your crew, but it can be any number of scenarios, but they usually involve your crew. And just to illustrate, I had this really great experience where I had one of those dialogue boxes pop up, and it was a mercenary commander from another mercenary group that was like, "Hey man, I heard that you have so and so in your team. Just so you know, she's not good. Like, she's a thief and she's messed me up, so just be careful." And I was like, it gave you a choice to delete it, to fire the mech warrior, or to like show her the message. And so I showed it to her, and she was like, "Oh man, I can't be trusted anywhere. Like, us ex-cons get no second chances. It's messed up." And your pilots have these certain tags that are assigned, like if they're from outer space, or like it's all about where they're from and their traits, and it affects certain aspects about them. And so she got a new tag that was rebellious. And after a couple months and a couple missions, one of my staff called me and said, "Hey, we found her spacewalking unauthorized. She was doing extravehicular activity out in space unauthorized, and that's extremely dangerous. We don't even know how she got out there." And so I call her in, and basically what I did is like I had the choice to go on one last spacewalk with her and the engineer of my ship, so that she can show us the flaw that allows her to exit the ship while it's in space. And when that happened, there was a dialogue where she was just like, you were floating there and the nebula was reflected in her visor, and she tells you over the radio, like, all the fighting in my life that I've experienced, all the death and all the screaming, they're all gone when I'm out here. This is the only place where I can feel at peace. And that was like she lost the rebellious tag and gained another like positive tag, and it was really cool to see. And on the next mission, and it shattered my heart, because on the next mission, this particular pilot was really good with survivability, so she could kind of make her mech last longer and it'll take less damage in certain circumstances. And so we went on this really grueling mission that was like a really long fight, and she was taking hit after hit. She was one of my brawlers, so she was piloting a heavier mech. She would get in close and fight up close, and she's taking hit after hit.
I don't like where this is going, Pete.
Yeah, and she's taking hit after hit and just shrugging them off. And I had her go down this kind of ramp toward this area where all these big ships were parked on the ground, and she was getting pelted. And eventually her mech had a short range missile system in it, and finally all those shots burrowed into her front armor and hit the short range missile bin and caused an internal ammo explosion.
No, those are the worst.
And this was like just after I had this experience with her where we kind of left off on a good note, and you know, our professional relationship had been repaired somewhat, and she just went up in flames right in front of me.
I love that you can get that investment then, though. That's absolutely
so the game
lovely.
Is very good.
Yes.
It's very hard. Yeah. It's the investment that you have in your characters, even though they're somewhat procedurally generated, is great. The battles are like so good because each mech has so many different weapon systems that each mech is almost like several different units in a regular turn-based tactics game, and they can take so much punishment, but at the same time it costs so much money, and when they go down it represents such a huge loss. The game, I mean, it's truly special, and I've been playing so much of it, and I'm so thrilled to do it every single time. So I'm writing the review for it. It's going to take a while, but be on the lookout for that. And definitely, BattleTech is such a special game, and not the kind you see too often anymore.
That just sounds absolutely beautiful. That you can get so invested in the narrative, as I was sorry interrupting you with, but I'm
sorry.
It's awesome. No, it's okay. I'm also getting eager to want to chat about it now. Beyond just like the story beat stuff, does like her rebellious nature, for example, would that influence anything in the gameplay at all in battle and stuff, like not following orders or just going rogue on her own? Like, is every turn controlled with every member that you do, or is there some autonomy with the AI or something? Or
I wish I looked into this. I actually didn't experience any. There's no autonomy with the AI. I didn't experience any strong effects from that tag that she received, but I think
Gotcha.
what it does is as you go through a mission, you have a little gauge that builds called Resolve, and that allows you to perform special acts like if you have enough, you can, for example, target a specific part on a mech. So if an enemy mech has a powerful weapon on their arm, you can target that arm and blow it up. And I think, and I could totally be wrong about this, but I think with the Rebellious tag, a pilot builds the Resolve slower. So you can still attack and move and everything, but doing some of those special actions
stats differently.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot like Massive Chalice. Which, did you play Massive Chalice? Because it sounds like it would have been definitely in your wheelhouse.
No, we talked about this last time I was on, though.
We did, yeah.
I still haven't talked about it.
And it's very much like that. Like, that was one of the things I absolutely loved about the game, beyond the party management system, so to speak. But yeah, I think it's one thing I didn't really talk about is that the characters do get different, I guess for lack of a better term, tags as well. So you can have people that were like, they're alcoholics, so like that affects certain stat aspects for them. And also will be prone to, you could have a random event that will come up being like, oh, the night before a battle, so-and-so got drunk. You know, so you have to either reprimand them or they're just not going to be that effective in combat or stuff like that. Like, it does influence, the story and a little bit within the gameplay as well, but not in the actual matches itself because you have full control over the character, but it does influence stats and such. So I think I love it when that's in there because, it makes them less of just a disposable pawn, so to speak. Like, you will have some benefit or detriment from the way this specific character behaves, and that's super cool.
Yeah, and I find myself role playing so hard as the commander of this mercenary group. Like, in the BattleTech, there's a really famous mercenary company called the Grey Death Legion, and one of my probably my top pilot got poached by them basically, and they were like, the Grey Death Legion contacted them. He showed me the message, and he was like, I don't know, man, this is family here, but this is also a huge opportunity. Like I wanted to show you, at least to like respect you and everything, but I'm really thinking about taking this chance. And I role played so hard and wanted my mech warriors to like me so much that I'm like, okay, go ahead. And you know what? Like, because the Grey Death Legion was saying, we'll pay the mercenary company $100,000 if we poach one of your guys. We want to, to be a little bit fair about it. And I was like, you just take the 100,000, man. And then what happened is I lost him, and that sucked because he was like, he gave me a hug. I was like, thank you, man. I'm not gonna forget you. And then he took part of his money and threw a big party for the whole crew. And so that gave like higher morale for my whole crew on the ship. So I got like a little bit of benefit from it in that way.
Well, that's nice. Instead of just throwing them out the door. Often those random events or stuff like that, or even more low stakes, where like someone brings in a huge animal you've never seen before, but they're like, oh man, I love this stuff. I'm going to cook it up real good. You watch it. And then you can either let her throw it away or whatever, or you can let her cook it up, and she cooks it up for everyone, and everyone is like really weird about it at first, but they end up really enjoying it, and that causes like high spirits on your ship for the next 30 days or whatever, It's cool. Mm-hmm. And FTL had all that too, where something looks like a good idea, and it's like, it turns out it was a murder machine, and it killed 2 of your crew members before you subdued it, and you're like, F me! So, yeah, that's cool.
Good game, play it. If you have any disposition toward tactics games, play BattleTech. I mean, what are you doing? Come on.
I'm sorry. I haven't had time. I want to. I just bought it and I still haven't had time. Anyways. Yeah, that sounds like a dream though. And definitely something I could lose myself in for a good long while. Other games for me to lose myself in, as I was talking about Mystery Dungeon, I've also picked up for the site Wizardry Labyrinth of Lost Souls, which is again like another old school throwback.
Gosh, another Wizardry game.
First person.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. It's basically Wizardry but anime.
I saw some of the art and I was like, oh, this is what I guess Wizardry was so important in the development of JRPGs and the influencing creators of JRPGs. And I know that very early on, the creator of Wizardry moved to Japan. I think he married someone from Japan and has lived there for a long time and has developed a lot of Wizardry games, I guess, were developed by him in Japan, even the later ones, or mostly the later ones that are still old right now. But so it does kind of fit. Like, might as well just go hard into the hey, we're in Japan.
Then, yeah.
Yeah.
And it definitely just feels like, like a nice anime coating on it in a different way from like Etrian Odyssey. Like, I still feel, having played a bit of Etrian Odyssey and now playing Wizardry, I think I would rather be playing Etrian Odyssey, just because that whole mechanic translates so beautifully to the DS and the 3DS with being able to map your progress as you go. Because I like the old school nature of being able to like draw your map as you go, but it is very tedious right now because I've noticed.
Wait, are you having to draw your map on paper?
Sure am, because there's no like
this is that game
thing.
What?
Yeah, there's no in-game thing in this PC version of it to map your progress in the game. And there's also no manual for it, so that was really annoying too. You just kind of get thrown in, and you're just trying to figure it out as you go. And
sounds like Wizardry.
Yeah, so you're just kind of like, I chose to be a gnome. I based it on my my last D&D character. It's a little gnome named who's a wizard. And it was just like, oh, he needs money to pay for his tuition from school now that he's done. Well, better go adventuring. And that's basically all you get for plot. And so I get thrown into just trying to explore this town and figure out what everything does, how to go find a quest, how to add people to my party, how to arrange it all, realizing that everything is obscenely expensive if I want to upgrade anything. So it's definitely it's a grind. Like, this is an old school grind, and it's going to be that. I know I can buy maps for the dungeons eventually, but again, stuff's expensive, so I need to go down and do some monster grinding to get the money first before I do that. And even then, like, I almost died on like my first encounter when I went down there, and I had like a full four-person party, but they just got good hits on me, and I didn't quite have things arranged properly, and it was close call.
Have you played any of the old Wizardry games?
I feel like I did. I have once upon a time, but it's been ages.
Okay, so you might not have an answer for me, but I was just wondering how different or the same or how much new stuff they may or may not have added into this one.
I feel like there is really no new stuff added in. Like the enemies show up in different rows, and they can shuffle rows as they go. So, and then same with you. I haven't seen if I can move people around, reorder them during combat, but like you have your front line that can all just do attacking, and then you have your people on the back who defend, which you would reserve for either archers or your mages. Users. So that way they're less likely to pull aggro. And you just go through the thing, like tile by tile, left, right, look around, and then you might randomly have an encounter. You might not. You might find a door that's locked. You might not as you go. And then you'll come up to these just walls of black, and then that's an area of darkness unless you have a torch for it. And you can just blindly go through. There'll be little messages. Like it's a very old school dungeon grind. It feels like I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons without a DM, so to speak. And in that regard, it's all very fun, but like graphically, it is very dated. Like it's a 3D environment, but it's the textures and everything are pretty basic, and the monsters are all little like 2D cutouts essentially. Like they're not animated. They look like something out of like RPG Maker or whatever.
They don't animate the monsters? Wow.
No, they're just little 2D still things that look like.
I guess they're going for an aesthetic. You know?
They are. It is a very bare bones. It's weird. It's got a high production value, but a cheap production value. Like what they've put there, they've clearly put a lot of work and artistry into. Like the character models, like the character designs look really great. Like the way they've drawn out each of the different heroes, and the monsters look really cool too for the most part. And again, the dungeon aesthetic is there and it looks good, but it definitely also looks like you're playing like a slightly better like PlayStation game kind of thing.
Right. Oh, right. It's all cool. Like that's all. Those are all ideas that I think are neat. And we've seen games do that. Like Legend of Grimrock did that and everything. As far as like modern games trying to be an old school hardcore dungeon crawl. But the only reason why it surprises me is because they made a Wizardry game. I think it was Wizardry 8, like in the early 2000s. That was fully 3D.
So it's weird that they would go back. I don't know if the budget was cut or what. And then that this is being like when you start the game up, it's with a very Japanese pronunciation. It's like Wizardry Renaissance kind of comes out as like the title thing before it even goes to the menu, that it's a Wizardry Renaissance. And I was like, is it? Anyway, it is a very interesting game that looks like, it kind of feels like the Sharknado of video games, where they didn't put a lot of budget into it, but could get a high return just because of the aesthetic and the appeal and the simplicity of it. Like there's certainly something to it. Having that sort of simplicity in this game, like you just go into it, you know what you're getting, you're going to draw out your maps, and if you have the time for that, it's fun. Like it is very satisfying, but I know it's going to get very tedious when I'm trying to get through this in a timely fashion for review. So I need to save up money for those maps, because it can be hard to remember where and what you were going for. But it's neat. The annoying part for me was I drew my map starting at a certain point and then realized it was going a lot higher than I thought it was, so I had to redraw it lower down my page. So that was obnoxious.
Oh, man.
Yep. Classic.
Old school PC problems, man.
Right? And that was obnoxious, but otherwise, it's hearkening me back to, like, even like Phantasy Star. But I found Phantasy Star at least had a really compelling world and character, whereas this is just, your bare bones basic fantasy, and there's no story at the moment to speak of. So,
well, Wizardry was always, like, the hardest of the hardcore. Like, I don't think Phantasy Star was nearly as punitive as the Wizardry. Like, Wizardry was, like...
Yeah, the dungeons weren't nearly as
so
winding.
Hardcore. And they made that Wizardry game where you were the bad guy and they had people submit their end game parties to the developers. This was like in the 80s still. And so you were playing the bad guy fighting like these completely min-maxed player created parties throughout the whole game. They expected you to play the game that way.
Oh, that would be really neat in a concept, but it also sounds really hard.
Execution. Right. It's just wild. So like in a way, I guess we shouldn't be surprised that they're still being like really, willing to punch you in the face.
Yeah, exactly. And this game is very much based out of Japan as well, because all the voice work and everything, like the little clips that speak when people take damage and stuff, it's very much all Japanese voice actors and such. And just the entire text of the game is localized to English. So people
Awesome,
will say
man.
like, "Oh, hello, how are you?" But it'll be all a Japanese phrase, or like your party members will take it injuries and they'll like let loose some sort of exclamation, and you're like, "I have no idea what you just said."
Right.
So I find that's weird, and there's no, but for those exclamations and stuff, there's no text to say what they said. So it's just weird that like,
Sure.
it feels like they just threw some English on and shipped it out the door.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it's just like NPC barks or whatever, it's not a huge deal. If they're not meant to communicate anything, that
No.
is.
But I would be curious as to why, like, my wizard, who took, like, 2 or 3 damage, then exclaimed a full sentence. I was like, what did you just say?
You probably said, "Ow, my leg, dude! Ouch!"
Well, exactly. It's one thing to just be like, and take damage. But when they're like, oh my gosh, that really hurt. Please do something, whatever. Like, I don't know. It was interesting. But
Right.
whatever. Either way, it's a very bare bones experience. And so far, I like the simplicity, but we'll see how far that goes. I'm hoping something a bit more involved than grinding for my life will come up. But right now I'm just trying to like grind to get some decent enough gear so that way I can progress on forward. And yeah, so part of the way you were saying that you're playing BattleTech, like it's on PC on Steam.
Yeah, it's on Steam.
but-
It's not on any console or anything.
No.
But the way I'm playing it, because right now I'm in the middle of renovating my basement, which is where my office is going to be and other stuff. But so right now my computer's hooked up in the laundry room, and I've been playing a lot on Steam Link. And whatever game I can, and what games make sense for it, and whenever I can, I play on my Steam Link.
So not everything's playable on it?
Well, I have the Steam controller is the thing, which I largely like in concept, but it's not good for most games that most people will probably want to play.
Okay.
Because
You
it has
can't just
one
hook up, I
analog
guess, a
stick
mouse
and-
and a keyboard to whatever your Steam Link thing is. Because it goes through a
I could
device,
potentially.
right?
I just have a family, and my spouse would probably have something to say about that. But what I've been doing, I just found out that this was a thing, but it's been a thing, I guess, since March, and I think it might still be in beta. But it's Steam Link Anywhere, and so if any of you have a Steam account and are thinking about like Stadia or whatever, don't do that. Just download the Steam Link app on your phone, or even the Steam Link app is on a lot of smart TVs now and stuff, because the
handy.
actual Steam Link device is discontinued. But I've been playing BattleTech, for example, on my phone, and that whole game you can get through with one mouse button and a mouse. So my touch screen is my trackpad, and I tap to click, and it's just perfectly playable over a 4G connection. It's way better than you would imagine, way more stable than you might think. And I've even started branching out a little bit and I started playing Gato Roboto, which isn't an RPG, but it's a Metroidvania. It's a really cute black and white little Metroidvania published by Devolver. And like even over a 4G network, it's pretty responsive. There is definitely lag, but it's acceptable for almost anything. And as far as RPGs goes, I started just barely Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. I hooked up my Bluetooth controller to my phone and was just playing a little bit over Steam Link Anywhere.
Speaking of old things.
Yeah. That game is great, though. I love the start so far. But just with a Bluetooth controller, I had to do some configuring because Steam and Steam Link is made to accept a lot of configurations, so you might have to put in some work. But certainly if you're playing games on a touchscreen, you can arrange the controls however you want, or it accepts just a Bluetooth controller, a generic Android Bluetooth controller. It's not so I will say the app is not available for iOS as of right now, so if you want to get it on your phone, you're going to need an Android.
But I guess the architecture was probably built originally in an Android system or something like that.
Yeah. So the Steam Link app has been around for a long time, but only, I guess, since March have they let you just play. Like if your computer is on and Steam is open, you can access it from anywhere. You can access it over the cell network. You can just like have your computer.
You need a heck of a lot of data for that, though.
It devours data. So if you make sure you have an unlimited plan if you're going to do it that way. But even just if you're in another Wi-Fi that's not your own house. Before you had to be on the same Wi-Fi that your computer was on.
Oh, nice. You don't have to be on the same network. Okay, that's handy.
That's the whole point. You can take
conceivably
it
take it to a friend's house.
So yeah, the difference is, because Stadia to me is just kind of crazy because like you have to buy the games again, and they let you use their servers, and also you're paying a monthly fee. But with Steam Link Anywhere, it's free, and whatever games are already in your Steam library, you can just play. So there's a lot of options there, and it's great. It's been great for me with BattleTech, and as I don't really have access to my computer or a lot of my games right now, it's been a great way for me to still be involved, especially for like writing for the site and everything, and just be able to enjoy my hobby. So Steam Link is like pretty cool. I've been just flabbergasted at how good it, how well it works, and just how much fun.
Do you need a Steam controller for it, or can you use any Bluetooth controller or anything for it?
Any Bluetooth controller.
Oh, dope. Okay, that's nice, because I know there's... Yeah, okay, great. And this episode was brought to you by Steam. No, I'm kidding.
Valve.
If only Valve was sponsoring us, that'd be great, but not the case. At any rate, that sounds awesome, and actually, yeah, something that is compelling to me, because there's been certain games that I would rather play on my big TV than in the office, so maybe that's something I can look into, too. And picking up myself a solid Bluetooth controller. I mean, Scott's always extolled the virtues of the 8BitDo, a recent like SNES looking one, so maybe they'll finally pick it up just for that, because I have a Logitech one, but it needs a USB receiver thing. It's not full Bluetooth. It connects through a USB wirelessly. It has a little USB diode that you plug in and that, but anyways. But yeah, sounds awesome, and like a fully usable thing over whatever the mess that Stadia is. But that being said, that's going to wrap our episode up for us, because we just figured we'd keep it a nice little quick one with just the two of us, because you want to listen to the two of us talking for 2 hours, even though I'm sure we could. But, you know, we got stuff to do, so do you. But thank you so much for listening, folks, as we kick off the new year. As always, you can send us messages and stuff at podcast@rpgfan.com. I've got one email that I need to address, just this episode we're out of time, sadly, so I will get to you, sir. But otherwise, please send in emails. I like getting the feedback. I like getting people's stories about what they've been playing and what they're up to and stuff that I can share. And also, you can check out our other great podcasts that we have at the site. We've got Retro Encounter that's doing all kinds of games on a very regular basis. Because, as I always say, Mike's a machine and puts out a lot of episodes. We've got Rhythm Encounter. You can go listen to that. Listen to some music. It's old. We haven't done a new one in a while, but it's still there. And Hat and Eric have the Phoenix Edge podcast that is keeping up to date with current events, much more so than we are. But that's just the way it is. We play things. We got time. We don't. Whatever. Anyways, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Have yourselves a good one.
Bye.
Bye.